Okay. Whole thing up. Okay. 20 years ago at this meeting, I spoke on the same topic of who should draw the lines. And 20 years ago, the moderator of this session was the New York Assembly Speaker. Today it's the New York Task Force Staff Director. It's like deja vu all over again, or when you come to the fork of the road you take, as Yogi Berra said, not a restaurant. But what I'm going to start off with is, again, 20 years ago we didn't have PowerPoint. For all the sessions that I've been to where people like Jerry have had PowerPoints and I haven't, this is my first time out, so we'll see how it goes. Try to also do it all in the New York minute so I can keep within my time. Going back even further than my 20-year appearance 2 years ago, I'm going to read a quote from State Legislatures magazine in an article from 1979. The quote is, "A growing number of reformers say that divorce is essential and long overdue. Led nationally by common cause, they advocate taking reapportionment and redistricting out of the hands of state legislatures and placing it with independent, nonpartisan redistricting commissions in the states. Supporters of this approach believe it will convert an excessively political process into a apolitical and technical exercise, free of undue partisanship. Their position has received support in both houses of Congress, where several bills have been introduced that would establish independent commissions to govern reapportionment of congressional districts." That's a quote from nearly 30 years ago. And let me just caveat my remarks by saying that what I'm saying today are my own personal views on the process, being a 30-plus year dinosaur here at NCSL, not of various clients that or state legislators that I work for, but that I advocate legislators drawing lines, but I advocate it in the sense that commissions might also work, and I work with a very successful commission of Republicans and Democrats during the 2003 New York City Council manic redistricting, where we did use the commission process. What I'll talk about today are the problems I've seen with redistricting, ways to reform, and also walk through recent history of commissions, how they've been created or failed to have been created, and the success rates of commissions and legislatures before the courts. I'll start with what went wrong with redistricting, the tale of the two Toms. I think you all know what happened in Texas and the abuses of, as Jerry had talked about, the process of the redistricting of the Texas congressional plan a few years back, the way not to redistrict. At the state level here in Massachusetts, the then Speaker of the State House of Representatives, Tom Finneran, essentially lost his leadership role for some of the abuses that caused the Massachusetts State House to be struck down on a Voting Rights Act challenge, where there were also things in the process that never should have taken place because the right process wasn't used. When we look at commissions, there are some basic threshold questions that should be asked. Can commissions take the politics out of the politics? Will districts by commissions be balanced? Will commissions look out for the public interest, as Mark mentioned, and state legislators can? Who are the commissioners responsible to? How can commissions deal with partisan discord? And do commissions go through an honest give and take process? I'll look back at about 12 different initiative efforts that we've seen in the last 60 some odd years where commissions were created or failed. Of the states that had successful initiatives, I'm leaving out states like Idaho and New Jersey, which had commissions created through statute, if I'm correct, but states where we've had some successes and why. In Arkansas in 1936, a commission was created because essentially Arkansas, and if there's no one here from this morning that wasn't from Arkansas, is anyone here now? Well, okay, if I'm correct, Arkansas looked at its legislature, had never been redistricted in many, many decades, and being a democratic state, a decision was basically made with strong support from the Little Rock newspapers to create a commission and to give it to the executive. And frankly, the debate we go through now as to whether the executive should have involvement in it was not on the table back in those days. In 1962, Oklahoma created a commission where you were a year after Baker v. Carr. There was litigation on the horizon for nearly every state that did not make some effort to change the way lines were drawn based on the Baker v. Carr one person, one vote imbalances. So there was a public support in Oklahoma, lest the courts step in and not get what was then an overwhelmingly Democratic state. We've heard about Colorado creating a commission in 1974. In 1974, you had Watergate, and there was a groundswell of change in states. And I think the Colorado change went part and parcel with what was happening nationally, and that commission passed in the election that year. And in 2000, Arizona created a commission where there was very strong support, again by the media, to create a commission. Also in 1999, the then Republican leadership in the legislature tried to advance the commission, which in statute would have 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats as members. Kind of left a bad taste in people's minds, trying to draw a map that way. With the efforts that failed, you had an Oklahoma effort in 1960, 2 years prior to the commission that was created in 1962, and that was basically opposed by Democrats. There were no overwhelming efforts to really support the plan. In North Dakota in 1973, there was major Republican opposition to a Democratic sponsored plan where the Republicans called it, quote, another unresponsive bureaucracy. We've had several efforts to pass plans in Ohio and California. In Ohio in 1981, Republicans who were unhappy being in the minority in that state at the time pushed for an initiative effort, but that plan would have caused the most compact districts possible to have been created. So there was, unease with that kind of criteria. In California, there's been several efforts all the way through last year. There may be possibly another ballot question next year. But in 1982, an effort failed after the California Democrats put through one of Phil Burton's quote-unquote masterpieces of modern art. But at that point, Democrats called the commission, the way it was being presented to the voters, quote, a bunch of old white upper-class men. And there was a regrouping in 1984. The proponents suggested using 8 retired judges to be members of the commission, which is where I think the retired judges concept first began. That effort failed, and then again in 1990, an effort failed in California where judges would make up the commission, but must agree on a plan from submitted plans from the public. And in 1990, Common Cause opposed the plan, which was of interest since they were often a proponent as they are now. In 2005, 2 years ago, an effort in California failed because it was seen as more of a partisan struggle, and members of the congressional delegation of both sides were in opposition. And there was an effort in Ohio in 2005, which Jerry had referenced, that went down where it was seen as being part of too much of a change in state government, and the opposition, led by Republicans, is very well financed and organized. I'm going to do a quick walkthrough on the success and failure rates of commission and legislative plans going back to the 1970s. My research is based on documents I have found through NCSL sources, so decade to decade, some of the exact matchups might be different in how I present them. But essentially, in the 1970s, of plans drawn by state legislatures, the state House success rate was 67% before the courts, and the Senate success rate was 63% before the courts. Commissions fared somewhat in the same level in the 70s. House commission plans succeeded 63% of the time, as did Senate commission plans 75% of the time. Moving ahead to the 1980s, in plans drawn by state legislatures, you had a success